If you've ever seen the words simile or metaphor or illusion on the SSAT, you've probably answered a question about figurative language. Today, we'll talk about what the most common types of figurative language are and some strategies to improve as you answer these types of questions on the SSAT. Let's begin first with a definition. What exactly is figurative language? So, figurative language are phrases and expressions that go beyond the word's literal meaning to create a stronger image in the reader's mind. We often see them used in fiction and poetry, though we can definitely see them in nonfiction texts as well. So let's dive into our common types of figurative language. The first one is a simile. So a simile is a comparison between two unlike things that uses like or as. It's important to note the unlike things here. If I say that Jan looks like Susan, we're not comparing two unlike things, right? These should be not just saying that something resembles something else. So a great example of this would be her voice echoed like thunder, right? A voice and thunder are different things, but we're saying her voice has that same resonance, the same power as thunder. Similarly, a metaphor is a comparison between two unlike things, but without using the words like or as. An example of this might be his words were a balm to my anger. We're comparing his words to a balm, but again, not using like or as. Next, personification is where we give human traits to a non-human thing. So, for example, the raindrops chattered with the leaves. Chatter is a human action, but we're saying that raindrops, a non-human thing, is doing that action. An idiom is a common expression, but that's not meant literally. So, for example, the SSAT was a piece of cake after all my preparation. We're not literally saying that the SSAT was a piece of cake, but we're saying that it's easy. An allusion is a reference to a commonly known book or character or historical event or famous person or any of those things. Often, these are going to refer to literature. So one popular example from a Taylor Swift song would be, "You were Romeo, I was a scarlet letter." We've got two allusions in this one. Romeo refers to the character Romeo from Romeo and Juliet, and scarlet letter refers to the book Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Both of those are characters or symbols that most people are likely to know and to know what those mean. A hyperbole is an extreme exaggeration. So an example of this would be her smile was a mile wide, right? Her smile may have been wide, but it wasn't literally a mile wide. Often hyperbole is going to have to do with numbers and measurements. All right, so let's take a look at some figurative language questions in the context of a passage. The first thing to do is go ahead and pause the video and read this passage. You can do so now. All right, now that you have read the passage, let's take a look at some example questions. We're going to take a look at two possible questions that you might see. So the first one, the phrase, "Wings for my stifled spirit, sunlight burning through my darkness, freedom singing to me in my prison, deathless songs tuning prison bars into the strings of a beautiful violin," is an example of a. Well, what we're going to want to do before we even read our answer choices is we're going to want to go back to the passage and find where we see this and make sure that we read the whole sentence. Sometimes the questions will leave out important words if you don't go back and read the entire sentence. So we can see this sentence here, or these two sentences here. And so what I notice when I look back at that sentence is first, all of these words are referring back to the promised land, which is actually an allusion referencing back to America. So all of these things are describing America. So what kind of figurative language are they? What do you think? Well, I noticed that they're comparing, right? She's comparing America to wings, to sunlight, to freedom, to songs, but I don't see the words like or as. So that tells me that this is going to be a metaphor. Now, if we look at the second type of question, according to the author, America is like, so we know this is going to be using some sort of figurative language to discuss America. Let's check out our options. First, America is like a beautiful instrument. Well, we see this beautiful instrument referenced here with the beautiful violin, but it's saying that prison bars are turned into the strings of a beautiful violin, but it's not exactly referencing America. So that's probably not going to be our best choice. B, sunlight burning through darkness. Well, we see that sunlight burning through darkness right here. And it does seem to be describing America, right? It's actually part of the metaphor we just looked at. So that seems to be possible. Colors that never saw light. We see that one down here in the second paragraph. But that is talking about the things that didn't happen in the old world. So that's not quite right. Generations clamoring for expression. We also see that here, but that's similarly talking about the things her body was holding as she went to America, which isn't quite the same thing as saying America is like. And then finally, choking on oppression. We see that oppression referenced when she is talking about Russia instead with this airless oppression. So that's not referencing America. So that would mean our best answer for this one would be B. If you struggle with those figurative language questions, there are a couple things that you can do to help you improve for next time. The first one would be to make sure you have memorized the definitions that we covered earlier. If you don't have those definitions down, it's going to be really hard to identify figurative language correctly. So make sure you're really confident on those definitions. The second thing that you can do is to practice identifying figurative language in books or articles or other texts that you read. This is going to help you by making sure that you're reading really carefully and that you can identify figurative language outside of multiple choice questions. If you can find it in books that you read, you should be able to transfer that skill to the SSAT as well. You should now be prepared to answer any figurative language question you come across on the SSAT.